Welcome to another episode of the Endurance Matters podcast. I'm your host, Justin Metzler, and today in studio I have the CEO and co-founder of Lever, Brad Miles. Welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I start off the podcast with a hard-hitting question. Your coworker and one of your employees, Brian, he's a friend of mine. He's a former Division I collegiate runner, and he has a mile PR of 4:01. How many pounds would you have to take off on the lever in order to run a sub 4:01 mile?
Ooh, that's a great question. So probably not much. Maybe like 2 pounds.
2 pounds?
Like, honestly, that's probably it. So if you reduce 10% of your body weight, you can run 30 seconds per mile faster at the same heart rate.
Okay.
So I'm not thinking there's that much. It increments.
So how many, what type of miler do you think you are? Like, what kind of shape are you in right now then?
Me?
Yeah. That's what I'm asking, is how much do you have to take off in order to run a 4:01?
Oh, how much do I have to take off to run a 4:01 like Brian? Oh, gosh. 35 pounds.
Okay.
Dude, I've got 3 kids now. I still try to stay active, but it looks a lot different these days.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely want to get into that, but first and foremost, I definitely want to talk about the product that you founded and created. So first, can you please tell me just how Lever started, how the idea came about?
Yeah, the idea came about pretty simply. I feel like as most runners know, like your brain just kind of goes on runs, and like, at least for me, it does. I love to think on runs. I was actually running we moved to Boulder for back in 2018, and one of my first runs that I had with my neighbor, who's now my co-founder, was a trail run up in the mountains, and we were just talking about life and things like that, and this idea popped into our head of, a lot of our friends were banged up and injured, and is there a way to bring like Alter G-like functionality to the masses, to our friends? And so that's honestly the idea that kind of kicked things off. I had previous experience with the Alter G running in college, and so I knew the concept and knew the functionality and how incredible it was, but we really couldn't find anything that was out in the space that was affordable, accessible, and so that's kind of what kicked things off.
Yeah, very cool. When you were in college, what were the things that you liked about the Alter G, and how'd you use it?
Yeah, so thankfully, I was never injured in college running, so I mainly used it for just offloading days, so a few recovery runs. We did use it for some performance runs, so tempos on it, threshold runs on it, and that's kind of where some of the concepts, like I just mentioned, of the 10% weight reduction, 30 seconds per mile faster. So we were able to do overspeed threshold runs on it, and we left feeling a lot fresher, even though we ran faster for an 8-mile threshold run. Yeah, it was great. Like I said, thankfully, I did not have to use it for an injury recovery in college, but a lot of my teammates did. And so I also got to see kind of firsthand with our athletic trainers and our team of, how to come back from Achilles injuries, how to come back from a stress fracture. I got to see the hands-on experience of rehabbing also with Alter G, which was cool.
Yeah, very cool. So you guys are out on this trail run. You come up with the idea. What's the next step? How do you get home and actually put an idea into practice in creating something?
Yeah, we spent a little bit of time just researching the space in general of like, very rarely in this day and age is there not a solution to a problem. And so we just started researching, is there an actual solution that we just didn't know about? And surprisingly, we just didn't find anything. And so we took some, like I said, probably a week or two of just deep research, because we didn't want to waste our time either if there's already a solution out there. And we didn't find anything. And so first things first. So I'm more marketing sales side. My co-founder is an engineer. And so we started putting the design together, and we built it pretty simply out of flag holders, wooden poles, and honestly anything that we could just make a frame out to fit onto the arms of a treadmill. And surprisingly, which was really scary, it worked really well. And so we were like, okay, I think we're on to something here. Let's start going down this path a bit more.
Sure.
So,
is this one of those things where it's like, okay, you get the idea to like maybe make beer at home, and you don't really think that the beer is going to become something big, but it actually becomes a real product? Were you guys thinking at the time, okay, this is something legit that we're going to pour time and money and energy into it, or was it just like a passion project? Let's see if we can do something fun here.
Yeah, like I said, we were neighbors, right? And I just moved to Boulder. He's been there for a couple of years, here for a couple of years. And so at first we were just like, all right, we know one friend in particular has this injury that we could probably help. So let's like build something, and it costs a few $100 that we made it for. And it really worked well. And so we were like, okay, maybe there is something to this. We have never seen this type of product tested on like at scale though. And so, fully committing to this as a company, it took a couple more months, but once we started getting feedback from a few initial athletes that we started using it with, we were like, okay, you know what? I think we owe it to the endurance market, the endurance population to bring something like this to fruition, just because we saw that it was aiding our friends' recoveries like super well, like different injuries. And again, we're in a town like Boulder, which is one of the endurance capitals of the US. And they could barely find time to get on an AlterG, just because they're booked out. There's not many of them, all that stuff. And these are like Olympians, right? These are high level athletes. And so when we just gave that to them, we're like, hey, use it as long as you want, use it for whatever, and then just give it back to us. And just seeing like the progression they made in their recovery, we're like, all right, I think we owe it to the population, at least the endurance market right now, to come up with something that might work.
Sure. And what were you guys doing for like your real jobs at the time?
Yeah, so my co-founder, like I said, he's engineer, but he also worked in like operations and logistics. I was in software, so I spent my whole kind of career, 8 to 10 years in enterprise software sales, and so the sales side of it was always interesting to me. I went to college for marketing and sales, and so and I always wanted to start my own business too. And so this kind of was a really natural segue. I've had a lot of ideas in the past, but nothing I really wanted to commit to. And then I think it wasn't until we saw the benefit we were making for our friends that we were like, this is something we want to commit to.
Sure. With those initial designs, when you guys made it, in the garage, was it an immediate aha moment? Like, oh, this thing works straight away? Or were there iterations of this isn't really functional, or there's this problem that we need to solve? What did that initial sort of like R&D process look like?
Yeah. So I think most people are pretty surprised when we tell them that we've made probably the first 500 out of my garage. So first 500 units were out of my garage. And, looking back, like, yeah, is that the most efficient way to build a product? Probably not. But we were able to be so hands-on with our product that we could make iterations really quickly. So like we were able to get units out, test them, and then be like, okay, that didn't work. We need to go do something else. And not that it didn't work, but there's a better way to do this. And so we made really small iterations to the product. Probably, I don't know how many, but a lot of iterations to the product in that first year of, and again, all the units worked. We just realized there was a better way to do it. And so from a strength with the frame, strength with the bungee cord, strength with the shorts were the biggest one that we had to work on, because that was a undertaking. But a lot of iterations in that first year, which was kind of fun. Again, like building out of your garage, you have the ability to adapt and make changes like super fast.
Sure. Can we rewind a little bit, and can you just explain to the listeners who may not be familiar with the product, like exactly what it is, how it works, and how it's set up, like to the best of your ability over a podcast scenario?
Yeah, it's great. I wish I had one here with me. I could set it up right now. But no, it's so what it is it's a treadmill attachment. So our frame attaches to the arms of a treadmill, and within the frame there is like a suspension system that reduces your body weight while you're exercising on the treadmill. So today we take up to 45 pounds of body weight. We can remove up to 45 pounds of body weight for the person exercising on the treadmill. But the nice thing about our frame is that it's it's super lightweight, so it's less than 10 pounds. So if you don't have a treadmill at your house, you can bring it to the gym. It sets up pretty quickly, and it's just really mobile. And so so it's the other nice thing about it too, and this was actually a pretty big focus for us early on with my experience in some of the other products that are out there, is we did not want the user to be locked in to into the space. We wanted to have like free range of motion on the treadmill and make the running gait as natural as possible. And I think that's just it with our design today. Like we use pulleys, and you can still move in for planes of motion around the treadmill. And so that's mimics and almost enhances your gait while you're using the device, which is really cool.
Yeah, very cool. I think like, the initial concept and the idea, the genesis of it came from a place of let's help injured runners. And I think like maybe there's a perception that the lever is like a rehab tool. Is that the marketing strategy that you guys employed trying to get it off the ground? Like, hey, you're an injured runner, you're an injury prone runner, use the lever because you can't get on an AlterG? Or was there a different sort of path in the initial phase?
We mainly went to market with that use case of like, this is going to help injured athletes get back to, full body weight running as quickly as possible. And it's just a healthier way to do it, a more confident way to helping you return to run. And so we really went after the overuse injuries, right? So overuse injuries, plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendinopathy, stress fractures, and shin splints, and then runner's knee, right? So like those 5 are like the main overuse injuries that we were kind of going after and tackling. And yeah, we did see that kind of transition a little bit once we started getting our units out there and like hearing things from our customers of like how they're implementing it when they're healthy. And that's what really changed our perception of like, we don't just have a rehab tool, we have a performance tool. And so now you see athletes like Laura Phillip and again, a handful of athletes that are using it from a performance standpoint while they're healthy and seeing incredible results from it. So yeah, our mindset has definitely shifted over the last few years.
100%. My personal anecdote with the lever is, many of the listeners will know that just a couple months ago I had surgery on my Achilles, and I've been battling with my Achilles for 3.5 years, and I've used the lever on and off, and I think I've always been resistant to using it as a performance tool. It was kind of like, all right, use the lever to get back to full strength and then run as much as I can, but then I'd have a setback. And I think like now I'm realizing that for the injury prone athlete or the runner, and a lot of triathletes and runners will have an overuse injury of some sort, there maybe is this balance of like, okay, let's throw one lever speed session in a week or every other week to supplement the running. So that's sort of where I'm at right now. Like in terms of today, like today I was able to run on land almost an hour. Tomorrow I'm going to get on the lever and try and do a speed session. So definitely think there's something there. Sponsor of today's episode, Precision Fuel and Hydration. These guys have been an amazing partner for the show, and it's really a product that I use every single day in my training to help me go faster, feel better. So in today's day and age, we all know high carb is sort of the thing. And so previously I've spoken about how much I like the chews, and I'm still munching on those pretty much every single day in training, but I've really been getting into the PF90 gels. That's been a really big value add for me to have 3 gels in one. And I feel like sometimes I'll just take that entire gel all at once or go half and half. It just allows me to get a little bit more carbohydrate and sort of just bump everything up and feel a little bit better in training. So if you want to try that for yourself, head on over to pfnh.com and use code BigMetz2025 for 15% off. I'm curious to hear your perspective in terms of like all the case studies that you guys have researched and had access to professional athletes in terms of triathlon and running. What would you say is like the ideal performance way to use it as a performance tool for a professional triathlete who's maybe running like 50 to 60 miles a week, and maybe a professional runner who's doing like 100 miles a week?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say it's still fairly nuanced for the athlete. One of the things I'd say is like, it's a really great tool from a recovery standpoint. And so like after a hard session, like being able to offload the next day and still have some type of quality, like again, being able to run at 85% body weight, get faster turnover in than like you would outdoors when you're exhausted and just barely trying to get through the miles. And but I would say there's the performance side of it is really interesting, because what we're seeing amongst our customers is that they're using it to run more volume per week than they could only at full body weight. And so, recent customer I talked to, he was stuck around 80 miles per week outside. He's a marathoner. So stuck at 80 miles per week outside. Anytime he was like over 75, a niggle would come up. And so he ran a pretty good marathon, like 2:36, but he left with an Achilles injury after that. And so after he got a product to come back during the Achilles injury, and that's when the light bulb went off. And we hear that often. It's like when somebody's using it during a rehab process, that's when the light bulb goes off of like, oh no, I can use this when I'm healthy. So long story short, he incorporates it when he's healthy. He starts running 105 miles a week because he's offloading 25% of his run volume. And he just ran 227 in Tokyo. And so that's the cool things that we're seeing of like, and so he mainly used it to add double runs into his work, into his weekly volume, and then he would offload for like a speed session too, because like, hey, I know my threshold runs really bang up my body for like the rest of the week, and I want to hit my long runs hard, so I'm going to offload the threshold runs that I can like keep the consistency, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's huge, and I think that's the best definite application for it. I guess like another question, that's the elite perspective, but if you're an amateur athlete, like, you know, all the age group athletes that I coach, their max running volume is like 40 miles a week. That's max. I mean, more so in the 15, 20, 25. Like if you're an amateur athlete running 4 days a week, where do you see the lever fitting into someone like that?
Yeah, and again, kind of similar customer stories. I feel like we're seeing from that point to, hey, I just want to run my first marathon, to, like I mentioned, he's still an age grouper, but he's like running 227 now, so he's like moving his way up. But he's 38 years old also. For an athlete that's just running like 20, 25 miles a week, but wants to do marathons or run higher volume races, like we do see them going from like, I can only run outside 4 days a week to usually running like 5 days a week and offloading 2 of the days. So now they're running 3 days outside, 2 days on the lever, and now they're running 30-ish miles a week, 35 miles a week. And so that's just making their marathon experience a little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah, that's huge. I think my big perspective is consistency is everything. And I think like oftentimes if you're an athlete who's only doing 20 miles a week, like you kind of have to space your runs out. Like maybe you're going to run Tuesday, Thursday, maybe you do Saturday and Sunday if you're, you know, weekend warrior type guy or girl. And, you know, if you can sneak in an extra 5K or an extra 30 minutes on the lever and still get that mileage up, I think it's only a good thing, you know?
And a big way to incorporate it for athletes that have a difficult time with volume is to split the long run. And so that's what we see a lot too, is like, hey, I know I need to do, let's say close to 14-mile long run. Well, I'll do 7 outside and then 7 on lever. And so I still got the 14 today, but I offloaded half of it.
Yeah.
Leaves you feeling better.
Yeah, that's huge. I'm really curious to hear your guys' perspective and your specific perspective with your marketing and sales background about the marketing strategy behind Lever, because we were talking about this off camera before we started recording. Like marketing is such an important part of growing a business, and it seems like you guys have really doubled down on your marketing strategy. So what is the, I guess, like main mission right now, 2025, from a marketing perspective for you guys?
Yeah, I would say it's always been somewhat central and core to us, but I need to do a way better job of it, and it is one of our it's one of our pillars for this year is education. And so just providing a ton more education on what we're doing, how people are using it, how they're, you know, using it to come back from injuries, but also when they're healthy. So education is first and foremost is what's really leading this year with some of our content that's coming out. And this is going to be more of like a kind of Q2 through end of the year push. But I think from kind of launching the company to date, what we've really been trying to do is just tell stories through different athletes. And so, you know, because we're one of the only companies in a space at our price point, we've had a lot of athletes like reach out to us when they need help. And so my whole thing is I want to help as many people as I possibly can, like come back from their injuries so they can get healthy again. And again, continue incorporating it so they don't get injured again. And so what we've seen though, is like, by offering a unit to like a pretty significant or house name in the endurance space, like they're willing to tell their story, you know, and like how they've used it. So we've done a lot of our education through athletes on social media so far. And that's going to continue, but I think more of an internal push from the company from an education standpoint, because we got thousands of customers, hundreds of really good stories that we've been given. So it's on us to get that out there.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think one thing that I've noticed from your guys' social media push is a lot of the content is triathlon centric, or has been in the past. You focused on sponsoring a lot of triathletes, or at least handing out units to athletes. Like you guys, you know, kindly gave me one when I was struggling with my Achilles in the early stages, and I've always really tried to, you know, tell the world how I've been using it and how much it's helped me. But why do you see triathlon as a market to play in?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of this really came from when we launched our company. So like we launched our company in 2019, less than a year later, COVID hit. So literally everything shut down. Our sales, I mean, really young company, like weren't making too many sales in the first place, and COVID hit. So it really dried up and races weren't happening. So people weren't too excited about getting back from an injury really quickly. So we didn't really see much action going on in the first year and a half, 2 years of the company. But then coming out of COVID, we noticed that triathlons races were coming back faster than most races. And so I think just because of the athletes that reached out to us in those moments of like, you know, again, it was awesome, but we got to work with like Flora Duffy leading up into the Tokyo Olympics, and then she won gold. So like, a few things like that really catapulted us into the triathlon space. Like Laura, like I said, I mentioned Laura Phillip already. She's one of our first customers, probably one of our first 5 customers. And so she was banged up at the time, and then coming back from her injury, and she's been using it steadily and consistently ever since. So we've just seen like triathlon was our first kind of into the endurance market, but we're seeing running pick up a good bit, like the marathon, especially the major marathon athletes and age groupers. But yeah, so that's where we're at today.
Yeah. So do you foresee in the future you guys trying to invest more in like specific athlete sponsorship, or do you think it'll be similar to what you've done in the past of like, okay, let's just supply athletes with units and let them organically tell the story? Because it's hard to, I think that's a whole, another rabbit hole that you can go down is like, all right, let's pay an athlete to endorse our product, or just give them the product for free. Like, what do you guys think that you'll continue to do it one way or the other?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have a necessary answer for you at this point. We were pretty bootstrapped to start this company. And so like funding was fairly limited. So it's not like we had money to go out and just sponsor anybody that we wanted to. But I would say we absolutely see the importance of working hand to hand and really closely with the like elite side of the sport. I think we learn a lot from that as well, just because a lot of the elites are pushing the boundaries of their bodies, and so we get to kind of be along for that ride as well. And so I definitely see us continuing to like stay close to the elite market. But I also don't know if we're going to be the company that's sponsoring every athlete out there either. So,
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer that one yet. I don't think we have a direction on that at this point. I think that for right now, what we're seeing is like the athletes that want to work with us have been very like organically using it on their own for a while, and then our relationship continues. Sure. If that makes sense. Like we don't start too many relationships off or any paid relationships off like right out of the gate. Like, hey, you've never used our product before. Let's get you a unit and let's pay you for it. It's been very organic from a relationship building standpoint.
Sure. I'm just curious from, I guess, like my personal perspective, and sort of just being interested in sports marketing and athlete sponsorship. Like if you choose to work with a professional triathlete or a professional runner, like how much of the ROI are you directly correlating to sales versus like, okay, I'm correlating my return on investment to using their likeness, to using their feedback, to innovating the product, like you said, pushing it to the boundaries. Like, is it an equal split 50-50, or do you exclusively care like, hey, we give X athlete $5,000, we want to make 5,001 back?
Yeah, we have goals whenever we put money out there. I would say for us though, it's really hard to measure that name, image, likeness. It's very hard to measure that. And I think like a lot of running shoes, like brands have that issue also, because it's just, you don't know how much a name, image, likeness is worth really for the company. But I would say whenever we've worked, we do other marketing things like working with podcasts, newsletters, and again, we work through some discount codes and that. So that's a very easy way to see the return on ad spend. We've really just started advertising through like Meta, Facebook, Instagram, and that's very easy to see return on ad spend. I think the athlete piece of it, we're always going to continue the partnerships in that space just because it's really important to support athletes. And so, are we going to have the same budget as Adidas, Nike? Probably not, but I would love to do what we can to support athletes.
Yeah, that's very cool. One question that I have here in terms of marketing is I'm curious if you've seen like a reception from the triathlon market versus maybe the running market of something like the lever as a tool. Do you have like an indication as to your total like purchasers, like how many are triathletes and how many are runners, and like who's accepting the product more?
Yeah, it's good. So we have about 60%. Well, I'll say it this way. About 85% of our customer base are individuals. The other 15% are split up between like physical therapists and collegiate coaches or collegiate athletic departments, essentially. So the 85% are runners. That split is about 55-30 amongst like triathletes being 55, 30 being runners. And so those are the stats, they've changed over time, but actually those are the stats for the last 100 orders. So that's fairly fresh data.
Yeah, sure. Totally. Yeah. 100's not like a massive data set. Maybe if you looked at like total purchases of all time, it'd be a different number. Do you think there's a reason why maybe it skews a little bit higher in the triathletes? And is it just that runners are late adopters to something like this, or maybe they're old school and, they have access, collegiate programs typically have an AlterG or a Boost or something like that they can get access to. So maybe if you were in that environment, you just are trying to get on an AlterG, like do you have any indication as to why maybe the runners are adopting to it a bit later?
I think just in general, runners are slower to adopt things than triathletes. I think triathletes have always been on the cutting edge of adopting new technology. Like I mentioned earlier, like early on in our company, when races were coming back, triathlon was the main focus, and they were coming back before some of the world major marathons. And so a lot of the athletes we partnered with or gave units to were professional athletes that were posting on our behalf for free and just really helping us get the word out. And so we saw the uptick in triathlon in that space. We focused on Ironman expos as well early on, and so did a lot more Ironman expos versus like marathon expos. I think just something that is just true to the sport as well is triathletes just are used to spending money on training tools, whereas like runners, carbon shoes are getting up there, but like runners, $100 for a pair of shoes was like the expense of the sport. And so, again, we're seeing that shift a little bit right now as well, but I think triathletes like gadgets. And so, thankfully we are a product that is extremely beneficial and valuable. So it's a product that has really spread pretty well from a word of mouth standpoint. And since we anchored ourselves really early days in triathlon, like that word of mouth is just continuing.
Yep. Very cool. I guess like one of the things that you mentioned earlier was that the growth of the company, you've seen really good growth in the last, year and a half. What were some of the moves that you guys have made that have led to some of that growth?
Yeah, I would say it's been a couple things. I think first and foremost, I know first and foremost, just having a focus for the first time on meta ads has increased our sales. I mean, that's those just go hand in hand. So visibility, all that stuff has really helped. And over the last year and a half, we've been really working on just partnering with whether it's a podcast or a newsletter that's just really trusted in this space too. And so, we sponsor some of the Kara and Des Nobody Asked Us podcasts. And so, that's helped. And I think just getting more of our name out there, like we've been around coming up on 6 years now. And so I think just from a word of mouth standpoint, from getting education pushed out there, like we're not just like that tool you see anymore on social media that people are like, oh, I'm so sorry you're injured. Like that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Like people now understand if they see somebody using it, like, no, they could just be using it from a performance standpoint and doing overspeed work. Right. Totally. So I think just naturally, just the evolution of the education has gotten us into this place where we're just seeing compounded growth.
Sure. Have there been any decisions or dollars spent along the way that were bad moves in hindsight?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the first company I started. And so you make tons of terrible mistakes when you're starting a company. I mean, I can share a few of them. One of them, we bought a Sprinter van thinking we were going to be taking a treadmill in our unit to all these expos across the US. And then we realized how terrible of an idea that was. And so we sold the Sprinter van. That was probably one of the worst. But I mean, I'm going to keep it from a material standpoint. Sprinter van was the worst decision we've ever made.
Yeah, that's a pretty solid investment. And also lugging a treadmill in and out of a Sprinter van sounds pretty terrible.
Yeah, you really have to commit to that strategy to do it. And thankfully, I'm more of this off the whim, let's go do things. And so I've got my co-founder just really balances me out in a really healthy way. So we've learned to work together really well.
That's cool. Are you guys both full-time in the business now?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we've been both full-time for the last 3 years. And so at least half of the company's history. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Sponsor of today's episode is Lever Movement. This is a really cool product. It allows you to get some body weight support on any treadmill. You pretty much put this device on there, you put on a pair of shorts, and you use a cord to be able to take off up to 40 pounds of body weight. So many of you know I had Achilles tendon surgery recently, and I've been using the lever over the course of the last 40 runs to work up to the point where I was able to run an hour on land today. So that was a big milestone for me. Additionally, I've realized over the course of that process how important this could be for keeping me healthy and getting in some speed work without that pounding on the road. So I'm definitely going to be using the lever over the course of the next months and years as I continue to get back fit, healthy, and ready to race. So if you're interested in trying a lever for yourself, head on over to levermovement.com and use code EnduranceMatters20 for 20% off all devices. So I'm curious to hear more about the future of lever. Do you plan to continue to innovate the current product like you have over the last 6 years, or are there new product, or do you feel as though you've sort of exhausted the current innovation of what you guys have?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, if we were under NDA with everybody listening to this podcast, I could share a bit more on that front. We are working on developing something that is going to be really cool. So I'll leave it there. The other piece of it, though, is we are going to continue doubling down on the body weight support side instead of branching out into different products for a number of reasons. But I'd say the first reason is just looking at people aside, there's 50 million runners in the US, and stats vary, but anywhere from 35 to 75% of them are going to get some type of injury every single year. And so the market is there to help people. And so again, if you just peg it at 60%, that's 30 million runners that are going to get some type of injury in the US. And again, we're a global brand. We have products on every continent but Antarctica today. And so we're really just focusing on, we're solving a really important issue for people that are usually in their lowest of their lows when they have an injury. And we've noticed time and time again, the word that everybody comes back to us to say thank you is I've had so much confidence in this return with you guys, and I'm so thankful. And so I think since we bring that confidence back, we're going to just continue doubling down and making sure our education reaches the 30 million in the US, and it's going to be a lot more globally, people that are going to be injured with some type of overuse injury. I think the other thing too is there's 8 million treadmills that are produced every single year. And one of our goals is to be on a large percentage of the 8 million treadmills that are produced every year. There's already 60 million treadmills in the US. And so the market is there for us to continue down this effort. We don't really have competition from that standpoint to challenge us right now, which is probably one of the things that hurts us too, is just not having competition.
Sure. Do you foresee anybody, if you guys were to get on a treadmill in all of the Crunch Fitnesses or whatever, do you see a techno gym coming in and saying, oh, we're going to make something just like that?
I'm really confident in our patent protection. That was one of the things that we did really early on before we started selling units, was to protect the product. So I'm pretty confident from that standpoint. I also think there's companies like maybe a Techno Gym or call it a Woodway. We have relationships with them, and so I think partnering makes more sense with some of these companies than anything else. And so our ideal is to continue partnering in that approach.
Sure. Over the course of the last 6 years, I'm sure that you guys have had conversations and meetings in talking about innovation. Were there any ideas that just were too big or too crazy out there?
Yes. Again, the way that I go about things is I have a big vision for where we can go as a company. So I may have to just keep it at yes. Okay. I don't know.
We'll have to circle back in a year and see where the product's at,
Yeah, and I think it's just one, I've had to really limit my scope and thinking and just say let's execute just really well today on what we're doing.
Sure.
Because of all the reasons I just said. And so we don't have to go chase down these rabbit trails of let's go check out, this new technology that's coming out, or this technology, or let's go make a running shoe that's really good for this. There's an infinite amount of things that you can go chase after. And as a business owner, I've had to have more of the, I've had to restrict myself a little bit to say no, you owe it to essentially our market to double down, provide an education and the best possible product to continue innovating with, to to the consumer. So
Sure. So maybe not talking about product, because it's clear that you guys are going to continue to innovate and there are big plans in the future from the product perspective. What's like the end goal for the company from maybe a financial perspective or a business perspective? Like, do you guys have a 10-year business plan laid out?
yeah, so I mean, as far as a 10-year plan, to me, so our 10-year plan from our business standpoint is to make a lever run as fundamental in training as a long run. Like, with everything we've seen, all the data we've seen, like there's no reason why it won't be in 10 years. So to us, that's just making sure our product's affordable and accessible and the best possible product for the consumers at large, right? And so that's first and foremost, I'd say our 10-year plan. A lot of education comes with that. I keep going back to education. And then there's other product stuff along the way, but yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sweet. I think that's all the questions that I have for Lever. If there's anything else that you think of, you can definitely chime in as we go along. But I want to get to know you a little bit more and sort of like what makes you tick. And I'm curious to learn more about, on this podcast, I've had a lot of cyclists, triathletes, but I think like when I say endurance matters, I think you can take that from like a CEO perspective as well. It's a enduring road to be a business owner and own your own business. So I'm curious to hear from your perspective, like your day in the life, like walking me through what a day in the life looks like from sunrise to sunset, and like maybe first start off with what an ideal perfect day looks like, and then maybe give me one that like everything goes to shit.
Oh man. Yeah. So like I mentioned to kick off the podcast, I have 3 kids. So I'll start with a terrible day. So a terrible day for me is my kids wake up before me. If my kids wake up before me, that's usually not setting off the day like super well. Like I ideally like to have at least an hour, if not 90-ish minutes of just like quiet time before my kids wake up. And so that's my ideal like setup. So that's first and foremost. And my kids are 5, 3, and 1. So as you can kind of tell, like our house is madness right now. And so if I don't get up before the kids, just like have a fresh, quiet start to my morning, like I'm just thrown into the wolves and like struggling to survive. My wife's awesome though, so she helps a ton. So keep going with the perfect day. I'm up early, spending time before the kids are awake, and then I'll go out for a run. Right now, I actually threw my back out. So stupid, but I threw my back out like 4 weeks ago, and so I'm like on my own like return to run progression right now. So I've been on my trainer a bunch with Zwift, and so I'm doing that like 3 to 4 days a week, and then running like 2 to 3 days a week. And so trying to manage like fitness with having kids is a huge priority for me right now. And then get the workday started, and we pretty much work obviously normal business hours, and then there's always outside of hours stuff that comes up sometimes. But yeah, lunch with the kids if they're around, which is awesome, and then go back to work, and then dinner with the family, and just debrief with my wife at the end of the day. Yeah, it's good. We got a great office here with the guys in Boulder. I also split time right now in Texas because we've got some family there. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But a terrible day, yeah. Don't get a workout in. Kids are up before me. That's a pretty bad day. So,
and is your day ruined if you don't get some sort of exercise in the morning? Is that like an important part of your routine?
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely an important part. I really love this quote that I heard in a Theodore Roosevelt book, and it was actually coming from his dad. His dad was telling Theodore when he was young, he's like, you have the mind but not the body, and so you need to like equip the body so that you can go accomplish everything you want to in life. And so that's the majority of the quote. Probably not exact, but he realized from a young age, like 12 years old or so, like he had to be physically fit in order to like pair like his mind and his body to go accomplish what he wanted to in life. And I think for me, that's as true as it was then as it is now. Like I think in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish in life, like your body has to be as fit as your mind to go accomplish what you want to go accomplish.
Sure. Yeah, I was doing a bit of research for the podcast and was chatting to one of your guys, and he said that you're a bit of a Swiss Army knife when it comes to your like athletic pursuits, a little bit of triathlon, a little bit of running, a little bit of high rocks. Like you mentioned throwing your back out. What are you focusing on these days?
Yeah, these days, so I was going to do a trail race coming up here. So, okay, I'll give you my quick backstory. So after I ran in college, I jumped into the triathlon world. I got my pro card in my first race that I attempted it at, which was awesome in Claremont, Florida. Did some sprint stuff early on. I actually got injured in my first pro race, which was to my ribs that didn't allow me to like breathe well under 5:15 pace, which if you're doing an Olympic or a sprint, you have to run sub 5:15 pace. And so that kind of like shot off like the pro side of things, at least in the drafting world. And so, yeah, I kept doing triathlon though. Like I did, Worlds at Nice and then Worlds in St. George in 2022, done Ironman. So 70.3 is like my favorite distance. But I think once we started having kids and realizing I was spending a lot of time away, like during training, that's when I transitioned things after that to more trail running. And so I started trail running a bunch more. And you can get 1 to 2 hours in and have a great day. And then once we had our third kid, I realized like, man, I am getting sick before every single race. And this is just like, running 80-ish miles a week, spending like 3-hour long runs out in the mountains, more 4 hours out in the mountains, and like training really well. And like my body was responding really well. But getting ready for like a big 100K, or I was even signed up for the Leadville 100 last year. It's like, I literally got sick the week of every race. And I was like, you can't perform at the level that you want to perform at if you're getting sick. Yeah. So I put some of that stuff on hold. High Rocks was just kind of for fun. Not really doing anything in that world seriously. So sure. Yeah.
When you're preparing for like a trail race, are you popping on the lever like frequently to test the product or to put it through its paces or just use it as a training tool?
Yeah, and I think what's really cool, so I've been really healthy my whole athletic career for the most part. I had one stress fracture in high school. But other than that, I was really a healthy athlete. I got jumper's knee. This would have been about 2 years ago or so. I was going to go do the Silver Rush 50, which is part of the Leadville series. It's in Leadville. It's a 50 miler. And about 2 months before that, I got some jumper's knee. So I had to take a little bit of time off. But 6 weeks before the race, I worked with Caitlin Alexander, PT in town. She's awesome. She kind of helped me with this like return to run. So I did a lot of offloading runs leading up to Silver Rush, and was surprisingly, I found myself in just as good a shape as, just running as if I was healthy. And so I actually won that race coming off of that. And it was awesome. And it's kind of like a testament to what I, for the first time, saw like that injury to performance case study in my own life that our customers see. So that was really cool. When I'm not injured, I still use it to offload about 2 days a week. One of them, this last year when I was getting ready for like some of the longer stuff, I was doing like double threshold. So threshold in the morning outdoors, a second threshold in the afternoon on the lever in the afternoon. That gets you in really great shape really quickly. And then another run I offloaded during the week for recovery.
Cool. It's good. Probably easy with the kids too, like be able to.
Yeah, the treadmill's super helpful when you have kids, right?
Yeah, 100%. One thing I definitely want to touch on here, I think we first maybe got connected in 2022. And for those that don't know, there was a big like forest fire here in Colorado called the Marshall Fires. And it took out like, I don't even know how many acres you might know.
Acres, I'm not sure. 1,100 homes, though.
Yeah, 1,100 homes, and unfortunately, your home was one of those. So, can you tell me a little bit about like that particular experience, and then maybe like the aftermath from, because you had a total loss on your home?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we lost everything. It was December 30th of 2021. So almost New Year's Eve, and so lost everything. House literally burned into the basement, which is wild to see. A couple days later. We only had one kid at the time. We were about to have our second 3 months later after the fire. So obviously it's just like a season where you really see your community rally around you. And I think that was at least one of our takeaways from that whole experience was like, man, community is so important. Like having people in your life that like love you, support you, and have your back, especially in a wild time like that, it's like absolutely critical. And so we had a huge community come around us. I mean, I feel like your team was honestly one of the first ones that like rallied around us, like helped us get into a place. Like if people know the area, like 1,100 homes and 1,100 families essentially trying to find a new place to live in this type of town. Like it's kind of hard to find a new place. And so your team was super gracious in like getting stuff for us, and like there was an empty house, which was wild. And so you guys let us live there for like 6 weeks or so, which was awesome, just to get a little bit of footing underneath us in such a moment like that. And then, we had our second kid, and then kind of moved into just apartment in town for a bit. But it was definitely a wild season. I think, like I said, you really appreciate the community that's around you in a time like that.
Did that experience like change your perspective in your business perspective, your personal perspective, like your perspective when it comes to your family? Like what was maybe the aftermath from that?
I mean, personal perspective, honestly, I think we've gotten just like fairly radical from the standpoint of you don't need things. Like things don't really, well, one, they don't satisfy you. And then two, when they burn, you're not going to be able to get them back. Right. Yeah. So like just having things for us, like we've lived fairly minimalist, I would say, since then. And just haven't put like an emphasis on having stuff. And then also I think one of the things that we learned too in that process is we moved in the first month after the fire, I think we moved about 9 times. And so from there, and then that's only having one kid, but then over the 2-ish years period, we've moved like a handful more times after that. And so I think what we learned too is just being adaptable in life, and just like being able to go with the flow, and just, just being like open to wherever life's leading you, like is super important. And so I think it brought our marriage closer together, like our family closer together. Like looking back now, I wouldn't have traded that experience for anything. Like I would have our now house burned down in a fire if we like, hopefully not. I don't know. Actually, I shouldn't have said that out loud. But I mean, the things that I can take away from that experience have left us as like different human beings. Yeah. Like truthfully.
That's very cool. And I think that's like such a positive, way to look at it, the way to frame things. And I think a reflection of kind of who you are as a guy and sort of how you approach your life and your business. And so like definitely excited to see what the future holds for, you personally and the business lever professionally. And so, like obviously I think sky's the limit. So before we wrap up the podcast, I got 6 rapid fire questions.
All right.
Ready to roll?
Do it.
All right. Number 1, what's the longest lever run you're aware of someone doing?
Ooh, I think right now is a marathon.
Full marathon.
Do
you know the body weight off?
The person was obviously healthy. So I think it was about 15% off, but 85%.
Nice. That's impressive. What's the most bizarre meeting that you've had since starting the company?
Oh, you're going to make me think a bit. Oh, bizarre meeting. We've had some investors reach out that have led to pretty bizarre meetings that we didn't move forward with. So, I'm going to say those.
Investment world can be a cool world, but also a weird place to dabble in.
Yeah.
Understandable. Who's your favorite lever sponsored or like lever adjacent sponsored athlete? Or if you don't want to answer who, the best to work with?
I'm only going to say this person's name because they've been with us literally from the beginning. And I've said her name a couple times, but Laura Phillip literally has been awesome. Like, she's been with us, like I said, first 5 customers, like she's one of our first 5 units. So her just belief in us has been awesome. And her husband, Philip, who coaches her, it provides awesome feedback too. So I would say them. I mean, they're the longest standing. So I would say it has to be them.
Yeah. 100%. I she's like very good on social media as well, and sort of telling her story and how she uses it. So unsurprising there, but very, very cool. What keeps you up more at night? Owning and managing your own business or your kids?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would honestly say owning your own business keeps you up more at night. The first couple years of starting this company, I was up at 3 a.m. every single morning, just thinking about a ton of things. And kids, first couple months maybe keep you up, but owning your own company was years. So
wow, that's crazy. All right, best piece of advice for the injured runner using the lever to come back to full strength?
I would say first and foremost, just work with a really good PT. Like work with a PT who hopefully understands our system. But there's a lot of return to Rome protocols that are already built out there. We have a few of them on Training Peaks. So finding a protocol that really works for you, that your PT approves, and like using that to come back and just not getting ahead of yourself. Like just, yes, your body may feel great. You may have no pain, but don't get ahead of yourself. Follow like a protocol to come back.
Very smart. Last one here, and this is going to be an indication as to maybe like the type of person that you are.
Okay.
How many emails are waiting in your inbox right now?
Oh, that's not too bad. About 3.
He's on it. I knew he was going to say 3. I could tell he was a 3 guy because I think you either get 3,000 or 3.
Yeah,
3's impressive though. You're on it. That's no surprise. You know, you guys are growing and you're on top of it. So I'd love to see it.
Yeah, awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Of course. Well, appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Cool.
Great time.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you, Justin.
All right. Cheers. See you in the next episode. Peace.